Wahoo made his World Series, not debut, but he made his 2016 World Series debut along with the Indians and Cubs last night. How do Cleveland fans kind of in general feel about the logo kind of being thrust onto the national stage? Is opinion divided? Is it 50-50? Sort of what's the vibe from Cleveland fans?
Well, the latest poll that was taken among fans, and this is well before this year, I think it was sometime last year or the year before, the Cleveland Plain Dealer, the newspaper, had taken a poll, and at that time, it was like 66% of people who were Cleveland baseball fans had no issues with Chief Wahoo being on the jerseys and the caps. But just scrolling through social media during last night's game, there was a lot of people, they were trying to enjoy their moment, and then they saw the sort of attention that the World Series brought to Chief Wahoo as being undue, as being like a distraction away from the team. Like, you should be focusing on the team. So I think among Cleveland fans, there still is probably a majority of people who would prefer Chief Wahoo remain the logo, but even among those people, it's, you know, mostly they just want the team to make a definitive thing, A or B, and then just move on.
Paul Dolan said back in April that the organization was actually planning on phasing out Chief Wahoo this season, and the block C has actually been seen a lot more often. However, it's being featured pretty prominently in all the postseason uniforms.
No, I think it's a superstition. I think it's a superstition thing. So if you look at, you know, Chief Wahoo has been the secondary logo for a few years now, I think, but they started winning when they were wearing their navy alternate tops with the Chief Wahoo cap, and I think just because baseball players have routines, I think they're just sticking with that routine. I don't think that has a whole lot to do with the fact that Wahoo is the secondary logo now. And actually, if you look at the merch that came out after the AL Championship, the greater proportion of it actually was Block C, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's actually, I didn't even think about sort of the superstitious
It's definitely the superstitious. There was, because Corey Kluber, who pitched last night, he prefers the navy tops with, and then they kept the cap that goes with that. And then when Trevor Bauer pitched in the ALCS, they chose the navy tops to hide his bloody finger.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the D-Chief movement that's sort of been going on? I think like BuzzFeed did something about it in 2014, but just give me a little bit of background about that movement.
Sure. So there's been dissatisfaction with the Cleveland Indians logo dating back to, you know, decades and decades. But I think what we're seeing now, especially with social media, it started in 2014 when the team officially demoted Chief Wahoo to secondary status, and then they sort of reaffirmed that before this year. And then there was some backlash just on social media. There was a gentleman who had taken the Wahoo off his jersey because he didn't like it, and so that sort of triggered everything. I think that was April of 2014, and a story ran on Paul Lucas's uniwatch.com, and then it snowballed from there into like ESPN and Think Progress and a whole bunch of other different sites.
Right. Do you think that Chief Wahoo is ever going to not even just be a secondary logo, but is ever going to stop being a logo at all? And if so, do you see it happening sooner rather than later?
I think Chief Wahoo came to be as sort of a financial decision. Like, they chose the team name Indians way back as a sort of marketing ploy, and then they used Chief Wahoo as a marketing ploy, and now they've stuck with them just due to gross financials. Like, they can count on that merch money, and they don't want to take a financial risk of getting rid of him. But I think, you know, and maybe this is just Cleveland sports fan optimism, if they would win the World Series this year, that would be enough goodwill that they could pretty much do whatever they want. I haven't spoken too much to people in the know, but what I've heard is that the front office really does understand that it's offensive, and they really do want to get rid of it, but they just want to do so in a way that makes fiscal sense for the team. So while that's not like the most palatable position, from a business point, they don't want to lose money.
All right, so you're obviously a huge fan of the team and of Cleveland in general. So how is it being a fan of the team while also remaining critical of the logo itself?
I don't know, it's kind of two separate things. I like the team. It's cringeworthy sometimes, especially when, like, for example, in last night's World Series game at the national broadcast, and you see people, like, the things like red face, when people paint their faces red like Chief Wahoo, like that's really racially bad. That's just, you should know better as a human being. So that kind of thing sort of makes you wince, and that's part of the reason why myself and everyone else who sort of does this DG thing, it's sort of to be a mouthpiece, to provide a contrary point of view, just because it can be difficult.